Hi, I'm Diaz. I'm a documentarian and professor of food studies. The Times asked me to share essential recipes of Puerto Rican cuisine that were meaningful to me, that resonated with me personally, and that also reflected the culture. For a place like Puerto Rico, this is a particularly hard task. Puerto Rican culture is deeply indebted to indigenous, African, Spanish, and American cultures. And so you see all of these influences in the food as well. I wanted to find recipes that reflected this hybridity, and at the same time, I wanted to also share dishes that I deeply love. I'm gonna show y'all how to make pernil, or roast pork shoulder. It is easily one of the top dishes that people think of when they think of Puerto Rican cuisine. The goal is not just to get it super flavorful, but to make sure that the chicharrón, or the pork skin, gets really nice and toasty. And that's the part that takes a little bit of zhuzhing. I'm gonna start by making the adobo. So all of these ingredients are gonna go into my pilon, which is a wooden mortar and pestle. This is a really basic one that I bought at a grocery store in Orlando, but this one is my favorite. It's the perfect size for making a fair amount of adobo. The pork shoulder that I got is about 8.5 pounds. So I've got 1 clove per pound. You do 1 teaspoon of salt per pound as well. And do 1, 2, and then you always want to start with salt and garlic, because the salt actually helps to macerate the garlic. When I was a really, really little kid and it wasn't safe for me to use knives, this was the first job I was given. Getting to do that when I was little also filled my nose with adobo, right? And made me really understand and really want to taste what it was going to be like with the pork. I am of the diaspora. I was born in Puerto Rico, but I grew up in the American South. In Puerto Rico, it's most common to have a pernil over the holidays. But on the mainland, I think in many ways, because the flavors remind us so much of Puerto Rico, we prepare it for any kind of celebration, right? You're just as likely to have it for Easter, for graduation, for a picnic, for a barbecue. And so I had to include this recipe because of all of those things, but also because it's really delicious. So I have about an 8-pound pork shoulder here. For pernil, something that you really want to look out for when you're shopping for this cut of meat is that there is as much skin covering the side as possible. For example, this side isn't super ideal because it's exposed, and that means that the chicharrón won't protect it, and it might get a little bit more roasty, but that's actually okay. It's really delicious. But as much as you can, you want to get a pork shoulder that has this kind of coverage. And so I'm gonna flip it over like this, and this is the best part for me. I don't know why I enjoy doing this so much. You take a paring knife, standard size, and really get in there and make deep cuts. I remember once making this with my dad and being like, Papi, are there too many cuts? Am I making too many cuts? And he was like, there's no way you can make too many cuts. One thing you want to be careful of is that you don't pierce the skin. This preparation of pernil is almost as much about the chicharrón as it is about the meat. I'll reach in here into my adobo and start to just massage it. This was one of the very first important dishes that I got to make with my family. I feel I almost remember my parents being like, ay, bombilo adobo, Vaughn put the seasoning on this one, and people being like, oh, it did a really good job, as if that made all the difference, right? But to me, it felt really special. I think this guy is ready to go into saran wrap. I'll put this in the refrigerator, and I usually will put it in like this, skin side down, so that way gravity will pull the marinade deep into the meat. All right, so this is rested overnight. I'm just gonna put this in a standard roasting pan. I'm gonna wipe it down with a clean towel. So this step and so much of this preparation is indebted to Chef Maricel Presilla and her recipe in Gran Cocina Latina. It inspired me and was very different than the preparation that I had grown up making, which was much lower heat and more moisture. I sprinkle on maybe about a teaspoon of salt. And this again just kind of helps the chicharrón do its thing. You definitely want to tent this with foil for at least the first hour to hour and a half. One very important step though, is sort of measure out to make sure it's about the right amount, is to take your foil and spray it with a bit of cooking spray. Why do you do this? So this is to keep the foil from sticking to your pork skin. You really should do this, or use a nonstick foil, because it will stick to your skin and you will be so upset when you've got foil just all stuck to your beautiful crispy skin. You don't want that. Now that's ready to go in the oven. In the first hour to an hour and a half, you leave the foil on and you just leave it alone. You can go for a walk, you can do some groceries, right? Like just let it chill. It's just gonna cook. And then after that time has passed, you pull the foil off and you wanna rotate the pan in the oven. So the pernil has been in the oven for about 3 hours. At this stage, I wanna check it and see how the chicharrón is doing. Popping it on the top with a wooden spoon. If it makes a hollow sound, then I know that it's done. Still sounding a little wet, so I'm just gonna turn it. Make sure it's cooking evenly on both sides. And this is a really critical stage for the chicharrón in this recipe. So I'll check it every 15 to 30 minutes at this stage. You might start to notice some charred bits around the ends. Depending on how much fat your pork shoulder naturally has, the bottom of your pan may have gotten really dry. So at this point, you want to just add little bits of water. You want to keep a little bit of liquid down there, partly to protect your pan, partly to just keep some moisture in the pork. Oh, it's getting there. All right, this little middle section needs a little more time. Oh, it's gonna be really good. All right, let's see. Oh yeah. Got that hollow sound all the way throughout. That's what you're looking for. All right, do y'all wanna see this thing? Yeah, of course you wanna see it.
Oh my God.
I always like to let it rest because that lets the chicharrón separate a little bit from the meat, and also, which is why it is cool enough for me to handle at this point. You'll just go right up underneath the crispy skin and you'll notice, you can see there, it's already starting to give. It just starts to separate like really easily. I'll get this little side here. And if you're lucky, it'll just come right off in one very cool sculptural piece of pork skin. So you can just have slices of pork and then little pieces of chicharrón on the side, and you can experience them together. Because I like to just snap. Some pieces might be a little less snappy. That's okay. Oh, that was a good one. Enjoy every fatty little morsel. This is a very special dish. It is a celebration of so many things, and it should be enjoyed as such. I like little pieces that are like this, like these little chunky bits. I'm gonna grab a little piece of chicharrón. It's just so good every time. And that is how you make a Puerto Rican pernil with truly perfect chicharrón. Zora, come meet the crew. Come here, baby. This dog loves chicharrón. You just like swallowed that.
Hi.
Her name is Zora Neil Diaz.
Say bye.
Thanks so much for watching, and buen provecho. Enjoy.